When the hospitals go dark, when the last ambulance runs out of fuel, when that infected cut on your hand starts radiating red lines up your arm, and there's nobody left to call you going to wish you'd paid attention to what I am about to tell you. Because in a zero hospital collapse scenario, a simple bacterial infection becomes a death sentence. And the difference between you dying slowly from sepsis in some abandoned building and you walking out of this thing alive comes down to one thing: whether you know which plants can actually kill bacteria and how to turn them into medicine that works. This isn't herbalist fantasy. This isn't your grandmother's folk remedy passed down through generations of superstition. This is chemistry that happens to grow in the cracks of parking lots, in abandoned parks, in the margins of highways. These are compounds that pharmaceutical companies have studied, isolated, and sometimes even tried to patent. The science is there. The question is whether you have the knowledge to access it when the pharmacies are looted shelves and every antibiotic in the city is already gone. Let's start with the most powerful natural antibiotic most people walk past every single day: garlic. Not the wimpy supermarket bulb's wild garlic, or even feral garlic that's escaped from gardens and now grows aggressively in ditches and waste ground. The compound allicin, which forms when you crush raw garlic, has been proven in laboratory settings to kill staph bacteria, including some antibiotic-resistant strains. But here's what matters in a collapse: you can't just eat it. Your stomach acid destroys most of the active compounds before they reach your bloodstream in meaningful concentrations. You need to make a poultice for external infections and a concentrated tincture for internal ones. Crush 6 to 8 cloves of the strongest smelling garlic you can find. For a wound infection, mix the crushed garlic with a tiny amount of clean water to form a paste. Apply it directly to the cleaned wound and wrap it. It will burn. That burning is the chemical warfare happening against the bacteria colonizing your tissue. Change it every 4 hours. For systemic infections, when that red line is crawling up your arm toward your heart, you need to get allicin into your bloodstream. Crush the garlic and let it sit for 10 minutes to maximize allicin formation. Then swallow it with water. Every 4 hours, the smell will seep through your pores. You'll taste it in your mouth for days, but you'll be alive. The second formula comes from something that grows almost everywhere humans have disturbed the earth. Plantain, not the banana-like fruit, but the low-growing weed with oval leaves and stringy parallel veins that probably grows in your yard right now. Plantain contains occubon, a compound that's both antibacterial and anti-inflammatory. Indigenous peoples across multiple continents figured this out independently, which tells you something about how effective it is. For infected wounds, you need to make a drawing poultice. Pick a handful of the freshest plantain leaves you can find. Young leaves have higher concentrations of active compounds. Chew them thoroughly until they're a green pulp, or crush them between 2 rocks if the thought of eating a weed bothers you. The mechanical destruction of the plant cells releases the compounds, and your saliva actually helps activate some of them. Pack this green paste directly into an infected wound after cleaning it as best you can. The occubin will fight bacteria while the tannins in the plant help pull infection out of the tissue. Cover it with whatever clean material you have. Every 6 hours, remove the old poultice, clean the wound again, and apply fresh plantain. You'll see pus and debris coming out. That's the point. Now we go deeper to pine trees. Not the ornamental ones in suburbia, but wild conifers that have never been treated with chemicals. Pine needles, pine resin, and pine bark all contain different antibacterial compounds, but the most powerful medicine comes from the resin. When a pine tree is wounded, it bleeds thick, sticky sap that hardens into resin over the wound. That resin is the tree's immune system, a chemical barrier that prevents bacteria and fungi from invading the damaged wood. It works the same way on human tissue. Find a pine tree with fresh resin oozing from a wound in the bark. Collect it carefully. It's incredibly sticky and will bond to your skin like glue. Heat this resin gently until it becomes more liquid, then strain out any bark particles or insects that got trapped in it. What you're left with is pine tar, one of the oldest wound treatments in human history. Apply it sparingly to infected wounds. It creates a waterproof antibacterial seal over the injury. Ancient armies used this. It works because the terpenes in pine resin actively inhibit bacterial growth. But here's the critical detail nobody tells you. Pine resin from different species has different antibacterial strength. Eastern white pine is weaker. Ponderosa, lodgepole, and pitch pine have stronger medicinal properties. Learn to identify the right trees before you need them. The fourth formula is yarrow, a plant so connected to battlefield medicine that its Latin name, Achillea, refers to Achilles supposedly using it to treat wounded soldiers. Yarrow contains dozens of compounds with antibacterial properties, but the key one is acylane, which also happens to be a powerful clotting agent. You need yarrow for infected wounds that won't stop seeping, and for internal infections of the urinary tract or digestive system. Make a strong tea by boiling a large handful of yarrow flowers and leaves in water for 20 minutes. Then let it steep until it cools. For external wounds, soak clean cloth in this tea and pack it into the wound. For internal infections, drink a cup of this tea 3 times daily. It tastes bitter and astringent like drinking plant tannins, because that's exactly what you're doing. Those tannins are part of what makes it antibacterial. Yarrow also grows in disturbed soils, abandoned lots, and along roadsides. The white or pink flower clusters on tall stems are distinctive once you learn them. The 5th antibiotic comes from the bark of oak trees. Oak bark contains some of the highest concentrations of tannins in the plant kingdom, and tannins are naturally antimicrobial. But you can't just gnaw on a stick. You need to make a decoction, a concentrated extraction. Cut or peel fresh oak bark from smaller branches, not the main trunk. Boil a double handful of chopped bark in water for 45 minutes until the water turns dark reddish brown. Strain it. What remains is a powerful astringent antibacterial wash. Use it to clean infected wounds, or gargle with it for throat and mouth infections. The tannins denature bacterial proteins and create an environment where bacteria struggle to reproduce. This is old battlefield medicines. Civil War surgeons used oak bark preparations when they ran out of everything else. Number 6 is wild oregano, the dried stuff in your spice cabinet, but the wild plant growing in rocky, poor soils. Wild oregano contains carvacrol and thymol, 2 of the most powerful naturally occurring antibacterial compounds known. Studies have shown these compounds can kill antibiotic-resistant bacteria like MRSA, but concentration matters. You need to make an essential oil extraction, which requires alcohol. If you can find any high-proof alcohol in a collapse scenario, vodka, moonshine, rubbing alcohol that has been luted, fill a jar with crushed oregano leaves and cover them completely with alcohol. Seal it and let it sit in a dark place for 2 weeks, shaking it daily. Strain it. What you have is a medicinal tincture. For infections, take 10 to 15 drops in water 3 times daily. For wound infections, dilute it heavily with clean water and use it as a wash. Full strength will burn tissue. The 7th and final formula is honey, but only raw, unprocessed honey, and preferably from wild sources or small beekeepers. Processed honey from supermarkets has been heated and filtered, destroying the antibacterial enzymes. Raw honey contains hydrogen peroxide-producing enzymes, has a pH hostile to bacteria, and draws moisture out of bacterial cells through osmotic pressure. Medical-grade honey dressings are used in modern hospitals for antibiotic-resistant infections. In a collapse, find raw honey, apply it liberally to clean wounds, and cover with clean dressing. Change it daily. The honey creates a barrier that bacteria cannot survive in. This isn't folklore, this is biochemistry that's been validated in controlled studies. Here's the psychological edge you need to grasp. Infection kills slowly, which makes it psychologically insidious. You'll convince yourself it's getting better. You'll tell yourself you don't need to spend the energy foraging for plants or making medicine. That's the denial talking. Infection in a zero hospital scenario doesn't give second chances. By the time you have red streaks running up your limb, by the time you're feverish and delirious, you're hours from septic shock and there's no ICU to save you. The time to learn these plants is now, while you can still look them up, while you can still practice making preparations. While getting it wrong just means you wasted some weeds instead of wasting your life. The final warning is this: every single one of these formulas has been used by humans for centuries or longer, because they work. But none of them are as effective as modern antibiotics. They're what you use when there are no other options. The real survival strategy is never getting to that point, avoiding injury, maintaining obsessive hygiene, treating small wounds immediately before they become infected. But when prevention fails and the system has collapsed around you, these 7 formulas are the difference between a survivable infection and a fatal one. Learn them now. Practice them now. Because when you need them, there won't be time to learn. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.